All right, today we're cracking open one of the most chilling and honestly one of the most important novels of our time, Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. We're going to explore the terrifyingly real world she built, a world held together by silence, control, and one woman's absolute refusal to be erased. And this quote right here, this is everything. This is the heart of the whole novel. Our narrator, Offred, is trapped in a world that wants to silence her, to make her nothing more than a vessel. So the simple act of telling her story, well, that's not just resistance. It's survival. It's how she grabs back a tiny piece of control.
And you have to get this before we dive any deeper. We're not just reading a book that someone wrote down. We are, in a way, listening to a ghost. We're eavesdropping on a historical artifact, a raw, unedited voice that somehow made its way out of an absolute nightmare.
So let's start right there with Offred, our narrator, and the only weapon she has left in a fight for her own humanity.
Think about it. In a world that has stolen her name, ripped away her family, and forbidden her from even reading, what's left? Her voice. Her memories. Speaking her truth into that tape recorder is the most profound act of defiance she can possibly commit. She is literally unerasing herself.
Okay, so that's Offred's personal battle. Now let's zoom out and look at the terrifying system she's up against, the Republic of Gilead. How on earth does a society like this actually work? How does it keep everyone in line? Well, a key part of Gilead's genius, and it is a terrifying kind of genius, is how it divides women. This hierarchy isn't just for show. It's a carefully built machine designed to create jealousy and suspicion, to make sure women can't trust each other, and to prevent them from ever uniting against the men in charge. It's classic divide and conquer. But the control goes way deeper than just social roles. Gilead wages war on reality itself by controlling language. If you control the words, you control how people think. They invent new words to make horrifying things sound normal. They rename women to turn them into possessions. Offred is literally of Fred. In a world this starved for words, a secret game of Scrabble isn't just a game. It's a revolutionary act. And of course, there's the constant surveillance. The eyes are Gilead's secret police, but the idea of them is even more powerful than the agents themselves. When you believe you could be watched at any moment, you start to police yourself. You internalize that gaze until you become your own jailer. And this is where that control of language becomes literally a life or death matter. What do you do with people who don't fit? Feminists, intellectuals, the infertile? You invent a new word for them. Unwoman. You linguistically define them out of existence. Once they're not a person anymore, you can do anything you want to them. So, a system this detailed, this diabolical, it doesn't just spring up out of nowhere. It has to be designed, it has to be built. So let's take a look at one of the architects, Offred's commander. The commander is such a chilling character because he's not a monster. He's polite. He's almost pathetic at times. But this quiet, unassuming old man is one of the masterminds behind a system of institutionalized rape. He's a perfect example of the banality of evil. The men who build these oppressive worlds often don't have to live with the brutal consequences. But Offred, she sees right through his act. She understands that his small gestures of kindness, letting her read, playing a game, aren't about genuine connection. They're just a different kind of power trip, a disguise of kindness that's just another tool of control. And here's the ultimate irony. The commander thought he was above the rules that he himself created. But that's the thing about these brutal totalitarian machines. They have a way of eventually turning on their own creators. In the end, Gilead consumed him too. No one is safe. And that brings us to what is, for me, one of the most powerful and unsettling parts of the novel. We're talking about the moral gray zone. In a world like Gilead, the lines between who's a victim and who's a perpetrator get very blurry. This is the question the book forces you to confront over and over. When you're just trying to survive, how much do you cooperate? And at what point does just trying to stay alive cross the line into helping the system oppress others? It's a really tough question with no easy answers. You see, the characters exist all along this spectrum. You've got Moira, who is all-out, overt rebellion. Then you have Offred's quiet, internal resistance. But then you slide into complicity with someone like Serena Joy, and all the way over to active enforcement with Aunt Lydia, who is, chillingly, a woman enforcing a system that brutalizes women. Serena Joy is just the ultimate cautionary tale.
She was a public figure who preached about the beauty of traditional roles for women. And what happened? She got exactly what she asked for and is now trapped, powerless, and miserable in a gilded cage she helped build. It's a brutal lesson in being careful what you wish for.
Okay, now just when you think you've wrapped your head around this world, Atwood hits us with the final gut punch of a twist, the epilogue. And it completely reframes everything we've just read.
Suddenly, boom, we're ripped out of Offred's story and thrown more than 200 years into the future. We're at an academic conference. Gilead is a thing of the distant past, and Offred's harrowing first-person account is now just a historical text being studied.
And the tone of the speaker, this Professor Paisiotto, is just bone-chilling. It's detached, it's clinical, he cracks a few bad jokes, and he actually warns his audience not to judge Gilead too harshly. He treats Offred's unimaginable suffering as just another interesting data point.
And we learn what history chooses to remember and what it lets slip away. Her story survived, but so many details are gone forever. They don't know the order of the tapes. They never found out her real name. And her final fate? Whether she escaped or was captured? Completely unknown. A ghost.
And maybe this is the final insult. These future academics, mostly men, are more interested in trying to figure out which commander was Offred's than they are in her actual experience. Her trauma, her voice, is once again pushed to the side in favor of the men in her life.
So that one thing she tried to control, her own ending, her own story, is ultimately taken away from her. Her voice is framed, analyzed, and in some ways controlled by others long after she's gone. It just raises this huge, unsettling question about who gets to write history.
And that is the very last line of the entire book. The professor finishes his lecture and asks, "Are there any questions?" And the book just ends. It leaves us with that haunting, ambiguous silence, forcing us to wonder about all the voices that get lost to history.